Welcome to Holdback Rack Podcast. My name is Jessica Hare. I operate Hare Hollow Farm, and we breed boas, balls, and select colubrids.
Hi, I'm Jana King. I operate ASM Royal Tails, and I breed high-end ball pythons.
We want to share our journey navigating herpetoculture and are dedicated to promoting biohazard safety for all species. And we would love you to answer the question, what's in your holdback rack? Vagina.
Episode 23 is vagina, huh?
Welcome to episode 23.
I did read one of your stories. I paid cash money
Why?
for
You
it.
paid for it? What the heck? I would have given it to you. Don't spoil my pen name.
People.
A lady never reveals her pen name.
It was really good. I was disappointed with how short it was.
Listen.
But you warned me. It's supposed to be short.
Mm-hmm. The genre...
It left me wanting more.
The genre, it basically calls for erotica shorts to be 5,000 words, which is, a couple of sex scenes and some exposition between.
Mm-hmm.
That's very standard for some reason. And I don't know why. It's mostly just like people in third world countries will just like quickly grind out the entire kink of one dude somewhere over and over again, 5,000 words over and over again, mixing and matching plot points, but it's more like a volume game. Romance is different. Romance, you have to like hit the story beats of a typical romance, even if it's in a novella or a shorter form. But they're almost universally 99 cents.
It was everything you promised, and it was very good. I don't normally read novellas. I normally read.
Oh, did you read? I've just outed myself.
No, I didn't. I read it was one of the dragons. I don't want to give away any spoilers, so let me.
But it was a short one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It was the one where he gets shot, falls into the sea.
Oh, that one's like my worst one.
Oh well, it's not like you told me which one to read.
Yeah, I mean like the worst one in terms of it fitting a genre correctly, because it's more like a romance short than it is like an erotic. Some of them are just like fucking and sucking from the beginning to the end.
Oh, no, this one was a good mix.
Right. So that's why it does terribly. It is not like a good performer.
I'm going to have to tell my mother not to listen to this episode.
Yeah. The Amazon beast that is like Kindle Direct Publishing is very strange and has its own weird sort of idiosyncratic rules of like what the readers perceive they want for whatever dollar point. It's all like, oh my God. I mean, I don't know. White people are weird. That's what I say to that. That's my assumption. It's just a bunch of white women being real weird on the internet. Again. Yep. Can't keep them. Can't live without them. White women.
Yep. White women.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you for reading it.
Yep, I will read another when I have time, but apparently I take 12-hour naps. So my other question is, my king that's shed that I thought was her pre-lay shed, I haven't fed them since she shed, which I should do, and see if she eats. I was checking for eggs, and she acted like she was really hungry and tried to eat my fingers. And so I ran her through my hands and I couldn't feel any eggs. So is it possible that should I mate her again, or did I just miss her for the whole season? Because she was getting real thick and doing all the right things. And now after her shed, like I said, she doesn't seem gravid.
I'd keep pairing, keep feeding.
Okay.
Sometimes they don't do it correctly.
This is her second shed since she came back up, but I didn't have her down for very long. So.
Right, it might not have triggered her to think. I'm having this problem right now where the females that were here the previous spring are acting correctly. They came up, they shed once, they paired 2 times, they shed again, they laid eggs. The females that are weren't brumated because they were little small, the female I brought in later, mic drop,
right.
All of those are doing everything else but correct.
Okay.
Taking too long. Shed 3 times since coming up from brumation, even if they were brumated. They're just all over the place. That's why I was this season is weird. I have clutches that have been in since February, and I'll have clutches laying in April, May at this point. It's not a tight season at all. So I would just keep going.
Okay. So I should pair them 2 more times.
Sure. You didn't miss anything.
Okay.
I'd still feed her or try to feed her. When she doesn't want food,
we'll see if
that's
she
when you know.
eats. Okay. Because I mean, I figured like you're supposed to be able to see the eggs in them, and I did the whole like run them through your hands, and I felt nothing.
Keep going.
Okay.
I mean, it is just like with ball pythons, physically possible for them just to skip a year. But it's like, I don't feel like it. But they're young and in their prime. I wouldn't expect them to for a 4-year-old cow.
Right. I mean, well, if they don't go, it's not like I'm banking on it at all. I just wanted to know if that was like you missed it or if I should keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
That was my question.
You're doing great. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
All right. Today's topic is generally the topic of feeding snakes. And you're like, Jessica, that is the most vague topic of all time. I'm like, you're right. So I made subtopics of the main categories of snakes that we keep. Ball pythons, boas, and mid-sized temperate colubrids. Maybe Jana will do like garter feeding protocols one day when she feels up to the task. But they're sort of almost the same.
Still alive and still in their cage.
Good job.
And eating every 4 days. It's amazing.
Right. So Jana's doing great. There's different categories, but since every fucking thing in the whole universe has 10 nuances and 12 rules, the notes got long. So we'll start with the first category this week, and if we run long, we'll just bump them back and do them later. So,
or if we get on a tangent, like
we get on a
talking
tangent
about your book.
I mean, we started pretty fast this week. We didn't do a 12-minute discussion of me moving, which is what we did last week. And somehow I didn't edit it out because it was kind of funny.
It was good. Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. Did that episode do well?
No, it did terrible.
Oh.
People don't like it when you talk about enjoying the things you already have. They only want to know how to make money, find people to have sex with, singles near you, hot moms, and
so hot.
How to like buy the right morph. That is overwhelmingly what this podcast has taught me about what people are actually interested in listening to.
Yeah, I bet our one that's talking about like how to run a ball python business. Does that episode do pretty good?
That is the number one podcast of all of them.
So what I would pick out of all of our podcasts, if I was looking to listen to one of us and I didn't know us, that's the one I would listen to.
Overwhelmingly, like one, you can see like, there's like 10 people listening randomly, and that's the one they pick first, and they usually stop after that because they're bored. But it'll be interesting at the end of the year when we go back and we do our like podcast year retrospective and be like, what was the top of the whole year?
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see.
Yeah,
probably, yeah.
But yeah, and even the top 10, and you can argue what it is, but it's all money, sort of morph breakdowns, breeding goals, stuff like that. Like the boa morph with problems, that one's in the top 10. But stuff that I'm like, why isn't this more important? Like nidovirus is not in the top 10. It is still struggling down in the doldrums. So fuck it. We're not going to talk about, we'll talk about money and just sneak virus talk in it. And then you don't even know it's coming.
Yeah. Like it just tickled a little and you didn't even notice.
Right. Tickle my pickle.
That's right.
All right. So we're talking about feeding, supposedly. So feeding is always controversial, and I don't know why. Always. Too much, too little, you didn't do it right, you didn't wiggle it right.
Your video was offensive.
Yeah, live feeding is offensive, frozen solid feeding is offensive, feeding mice is offensive, feeding rats is offensive. Like, all of it is offensive. So we're sorry in advance. I don't know. Don't listen to it if you feel really pent up and sensitive about feeding.
If your best friend's a rat and you don't own any snakes, look away, please.
Oh my God. 100%.
I love rats. I think they're so cute and wonderful, and they make great pets. I'm not saying that, but snakes gotta eat.
Right. This is a podcast about people who want to produce babies. So not a podcast for people who want
to
not
raise
production or just not production in snakes. So we don't feed to the point of killing snakes, but we don't feed on purpose to restrict size so they stay really small forever to be good pets or whatever. So all of the recommendations are based on a production mindset.
Oh yeah, that means if you just have pets, like then this advice probably isn't right for you.
Right. There is a little bit of like, if it's a pet, this is what you do in the notes. But for the most part, these rules apply to someone who's interested in having a snake breeding business of some kind. So pet people, your rules are all over the place. So You do you on that one. There's an awful lot of people who have a lot of opinions about a particular paper from like 1994 or something about Burmese pythons. About they were young Burmese pythons fed a meal, and then they tested like how quickly their heart got bigger and how quickly their blood plasma got thicker and how quickly they like up-regulated the size of their intestines and their stomach, and then how quickly it went back down after the meal was consumed. And people for a long time have been pretending like this is like a prescriptive paper that's telling you you must feed slow metabolism snakes no more than every 2 weeks. And I just want to push back right now and say it was never prescriptive, it was descriptive. It was describing what was happening. So that paper is not evidence for shit. I'm tired of hearing about that paper. If I hear about it one more time, I'm going to throw it in the trash.
She's serious. This is her serious face.
Like, I fucking get it. I've heard it 400 times. Yes, their heart gets bigger. Yes, their intestines get bigger. And yes, that is a different metabolic state than the sort of baseline state of not having any food in their stomach. But that doesn't mean a snake cannot withstand the burden of eating more often than every 14 days.
Because in the wild, they eat when they're opportunistic eaters. Like, if they happen upon a whole bunch of mice, they're going to gobble up all those mice.
Right. And
like, their body is designed to do that.
Right. And that's not to say that people don't still overfeed snakes. But the 14-day timeline is not magical to me. The schedule that I lay out here is based on experience and knowing when they'll go off food, specifically for ball pythons, and then on boas, because you're doing like seasonal fasting, because ball pythons enforce their own seasonal fasting. So fuck you and your 14-day schedule. That is not like the end-all be-all of whatever. Throw the Burmese python paper in the trash. Please. I'm tired of hearing about it. It's the worst. I get it.
It's a millennial. Let it go.
I have a fucking master's degree too. If we want to like fight, I will. It's not telling you that feeding faster is necessarily bad. It's just saying there's two states of a snake. Fuck.
Yes.
Okay. And then, as always, episode 6, we talked about feeding birds to your pets. You can feed many kinds of snakes, many kinds of prey items, and they would probably benefit from a varied diet. We talked a lot about why you would do that. We don't need to go over here, but people should probably try to feed more to have like a more nutritionally complete diet, even for a ball python. Have you fed chicks to your ball pythons yet, Jana?
I have
Quail?
Not, but I want to.
All right, soon.
I haven't tried the quail, but I should.
Yeah, you can just for fun.
Okay.
For fun.
I got to get some out tomorrow anyway for the king snakes. Maybe I'll grab a couple extra, and if they don't eat them, it's not like the king snakes aren't going to want them.
Mm-hmm. We also don't go over in this anywhere in these notes snakes that are. That's why I mentioned garter snakes. Snakes that eat more invertebrates. Snakes eat a large percent fish, whatever. Because we don't have a lot of them. Usually, snakes eat a lot of fish. Eat even faster than these snakes, so they would eat even faster schedules. So
yeah, my garters are on every 4 days.
Right. Well, they're baby colubrid. That's about what a baby colubrid is.
Oh, okay.
In general. But yes. But yeah. Little bitty garters are almost every 2 or 3 days. Like a little piece of like an earthworm or something.
They're on whole pinkies, so that's why they can go every 4 days.
Yeah.
And they have guppies in their water dish that they
for
can
a snack.
Munch on. Yeah.
Yes. So we're not necessarily talking about those kinds of snakes. The other ones that are like an outlier are like cribos or indigos that have extremely fast metabolisms and eat all the time. And you can literally serve them a dinner plate of like fish fillets and chicken hearts and whole food, and they'll just gobble all that up. It's a very strange animal. Different.
I've heard really cool things about cribos.
Yeah, they are cool. They're just all full
like
of crypto.
Eat baby ball pythons and stuff, and like, I don't know. I've looked into them before. Like black cribos.
I tried to buy some. I would like them as a cleaner animal, but
yeah,
they do poop a lot, and they're really big, and they're really smart, so they deserve a big, complicated cage.
Like your big one in your garage, like that? Big?
Probably bigger.
Bigger? Whoa.
In my opinion, people keep them in racks, but
they seem really cool. They're
as smart as you can get. It's like having a monitor lizard with no legs.
Oh, really? That's neat.
Yeah, it is neat, but they deserve a lot.
Enrichment and
taking
big
them out,
enclosure.
showing them stuff to do.
Yeah, oh yeah, they would be like a total hands-on display, also giant enclosure type animal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
And
big
they,
commitment. That's why
yeah,
it's
I
on
mean,
my like. That's
it's
really cool,
still
but
fine to do. It would just be like, it's like buying a monitor, in my opinion. Like, you're going to have a trio in a shed, or something.
right.
Yeah.
In their own house.
Yeah, they can live there. So we're not talking about creepos per se.
Or garters, even
or
though we went on
garters.
little tangents about them. We're
Yeah,
not.
we'll have like a dedicated, like, what's the joy of garters? Probably main topic at some point. And do like a basic husbandry, because they're all similar-ish. The other thing I want people to think about before we start is the concept of compensatory growth in ruminants, which I've literally never heard any reptile person talk about. Ruminants, if people don't know, are cattle, anything with a rumen, dairy goats, deer, whatever. But what farmers do is they don't give as much food in the winter when hay is expensive. And the cows, the like calves or whatever, won't grow as fast in the winter. But the calf has the ability to like catch up faster when they start feeding it better hay in the spring. So if they were shooting for like a pound a day growth, in the winter they'll let the growth rate fall to half a pound a day or something. But the the cow will catch up in the spring and will grow faster. So they will compensate for the loss. So you would lose whatever $50 a head if you were just like buying all this hay in the winter. Fuck, feed the shit out of it. But you would be up $50 a head if you just let it sort of have a lean time in the winter, and it would grow to compensate for the like calorie loss that happened while it was trying to grow.
Okay.
Nobody's ever talked about that. But what I'm saying is that snakes do this. And so you don't have to feel bad about restriction times, because the snakes are super plastic in terms of how fast they grow. So you've seen this, you can have a baby come to you that's a little small for its size.
Right, and catch it up.
Right, but you didn't really feed it a ton. You just fed it sort of a faster schedule again. It can almost still catch up in time because of compensatory growth. It matches you anyway. So what I'm proposing is we start to look at animal science for mammals and start to look at the allegories here. This is like what I'm getting at here is you don't necessarily pay $2 for a rat pup or $1.75 or $1.50 or whatever it is where you are, because you have to get them super fast, big, your females especially, because they're not going to breed at 12 months anyway. Just feed them a mouse, and by the time they need to go, they'll be on a bigger size anyway, so they can compensate for the missed size growth that they could have hypothetically had when they were little anyway, in my opinion. We're not quite there, but I'm getting ahead. But my point is there's like patches of time where you could underfeed a little bit, and the snake has the capacity to go beyond anyway. Compensatory grow, even though there was a time of some restriction. That's what I'm saying.
Or smaller prey.
Or infrequent prey. I don't know, whatever. This is especially true in boas, but we'll get to boas one day.
Ball pythons. Prey size is calibrated to the widest point of the snake's body most of the time. One appropriately sized item is preferred to multiple. Smaller prey items may entice a shyer feeder, and if the ball python is stuck on mice, then you're basically forced into multiple prey items.
Do you agree or disagree with that?
100% agree with all of that. Yeah. So do you think that it's better to feed a medium rather than two smalls? Like if you had a girl that was definitely going to go and was in her like feeding mode, because I have some that won't take a medium, but they'll take two smalls.
That's fine.
That's the only thought I have on that. Like I probably wouldn't feed multiple prey items, unless you said, unless they're a mouser, in any other situation other than a female that's like crazy food response, but is intimidated by a medium.
I think it's 99% of the time fine. I think double food items has been implicated as the cause of regurgitation sometimes. Like the first item goes down but doesn't go down far enough or something. So even though the total weight is still 150 grams like a big medium would be, because it's spread out so much further in their body, they're more likely to regurg. I think that is the primary reason why we wouldn't recommend it. It's also not as cost efficient.
Oh, right, for sure. Not cost efficient at all.
Yeah, because a medium is $2.25 or something online. sometimes. Sometimes it's $3. But if it's not the fall, it's $2.25. But you would be spending $1.75 or something so it's a lot less. It's much more
like
expensive to like
price,
feed
right,
multiple
yeah.
items.
Or like 2/3 the price. Mm-hmm. Correct. I just meant cost aside. Like,
yeah, in general,
really
I think it is fine
to grow. Then you're gonna feed her two smalls if that's what she'll take.
Right. So there's something about ball pythons that look at an item and be like, that's too big, even though they clearly could take it. And I don't know.
For sure.
It's all in their little weird heads.
Yeah, I just have like a few that are that way, that they're like, I'm going to eat your face off if you don't give me a rat right effing now. But if you show me a medium, I'm going to slink to the back of my bin and pout because it's too scary.
Right. It is the wildest thing. Ball pythons are so dumb. That's the ball python
literally
section.
Come flying out, chomping at your face. And then they see the medium and they're like, that's not what I wanted.
Yeah, I have a couple like that, but I do not understand them ever. And sometimes I still just give them like a medium because it's pretty close, and I don't feel like feeding them two smalls or whatever.
The only reason that a small, like if they were building and I wanted them to put on a little more weight, is why I'd give 2. Or if I had an extra small, I would give it to the one that
was starving,
is less likely to take a medium and was trying to eat my face off.
Yeah, that's fine. I think at some point I mentioned that we'll get there one day. All right. When do you start feeding your babies? When do you offer the first prey item?
I leave them in the incubator for a really long time. Till every single baby is shed, unless like one's doing something real weird, like it's super little and it's not going to shed. 10 days, that seems 10 to 14 days, depending on how long it takes. And then I put them in a bin and I let them just like chill in there for a couple of days, 3 to 5 maybe. So they're almost 3 weeks old at that point. And I know a lot of people feed the day they shed or whatever, but I feel like I get a better feeding response if they go just a bit longer.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I feed them pretty close to when they shed. And I might all do fine.
I feel like that's the norm. Yeah. I just like to give
But some of them shed like 4 days ago or whatever. You know, there's like a spread.
Yeah.
Because some of them came out of the egg faster because they were in the back of the tub anyway. And so it's probably all like a wash anyway. Right. In general, baby ball pythons are fed some point after
like
their first shed.
Yeah, like 14 to 21 days, somewhere in there.
Right. And that's true for lots of snakes, except for the weirdos. Dumerals, boas shed immediately after they're born. Like they're in the goo and they shed. Weirdos. So you would still have to wait an amount of time. And then
interesting.
Blood pythons don't shed for months. So you would have to you can't wait until after they shed. And so all the rules are different. But this is the rules for ball pythons. So know your species. But boas is the same way. You have to wait until after they shed. Corn snakes are the same way. King snakes are the same way. Most snakes are like this. There are weirdos. Most people, but not everybody, attempts the first feeding with live. Do you attempt the first feeding with a live item?
I do not. I attempt the first feeding with a frozen thawed mouse.
What's your success rate on first feedings with frozen thawed?
Maybe like a third.
Yeah, I can buy it. I've tried it frozen thawed, but I get maybe 25 to 30% of the clutch to do it. So I don't even bother trying anymore. I just give them a hopper mice 3 times.
Well, I haven't had much trouble with, like, if I offer them a frozen thawed and they don't take it, then I will drop a hopper in and shut the bin and leave it overnight. And they usually will eat it.
Yeah, I just don't even.
I always offer like a
lazy.
frozen thawed first, especially this season. Like so many of mine were going to be pets, and so people want them on that. So like the sooner that I start, and the more times that they are interacting with, you know, your tongs and the mouse in the face, then they're not scared of it. And so even though most of them don't take it the first time, usually within like the first couple feedings, a lot of mine are on frozen thawed.
Yeah, they all get to frozen thawed anyway. They eat 3 live, and all those 3 that ate live will eat frozen thawed like the 4th one or whatever.
Really?
Like I didn't.
See,
I don't have.
I just don't do any, like if I just drop it in and leave them alone and don't mess with them at all, I feel like the first time I attempt frozen thawed, I get that like 25% again. So for me, I'm almost like a month behind on introducing frozen thawed.
Okay, sure. I mean,
It doesn't matter. It's totally like what
like
works
what I'm
for
thinking
you.
is like
There is no rules.
you feed
for
them
this.
sometimes live, and if they've been eating frozen thawed for 3 times, then they're on frozen thawed to me. And so that's your
Absolutely.
6. So most people feed baby ball pythons every 5 to 7 days
Yes.
out of the egg. 5 days towards the beginning of their life, if they're going to do that. 7 days towards a little bit older. I sell mine at 5 or 6 feeds, but then you have them for like 2 years and you still can't fucking sell them. So we're about 700 feeds in.
700 feet later. If I'm gonna take them to a show, they better have at least 4 feeds, and I'd like them to be like 90 to 100 grams. But shipping, I would want more meals in them.
Yeah, I don't know if I know anything about that.
Why?
Like that seems like that's like a Billy opinion, but I don't know if I think a animal taken to a show is under less stress than an animal shipped. What do you think about that?
I think that's fair. I just
An animal
think
shipped is like in a box for 18 hours or something. An animal to show is
and shows
in
like
the
in a
display
display under
on
lights,
Friday and then
Yeah.
driven somewhere and then touched many times.
totally fair. Yeah, you're right. That is a Billy opinion that has been ingrained in me.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm just saying I don't know if each of those, if there should be a different category. Like maybe we should just,
Treat them all the same.
yeah, I don't know. They're both a somewhat stressful, but not too bad event, but it's probably not that bad either way. I know lots of people sell snakes that have fed 3 times. That's like their criteria. 3 times.
That's what I've heard. Like as bare minimum is 3.
Yeah, that
I
is
feel like they
quite a
do better
small
when-
baby.
Yeah, they do better when they've had probably 6 or 8
Right.
meals.
Right.
I just feel like they establish better, and if they skip a week or 2 settling in, they're not like in danger. Whereas I feel like, I don't know, a baby that's only had 3 meals and then doesn't eat for a month, that would freak me out as a pet owner.
Yeah. I don't have like good hot takes here. I just think it's probably okay both ways most of the time. But when it's not okay, it'd be better if it was a heavier baby. It's totally okay to skip sometimes, even when they're little babies. They're little fat fucks. They're almost too fat. So skipping is okay. And we've talked about this before, like when you buy an animal that's for sale and it's underweight what you would have had it at by this point,
Right.
you know, is
Like my
that...
clown pied.
Yeah. Is that like the person targeting your for sale stock in a specific way, or do they treat all of their babies that way? Do they subscribe to the every 2 week method because they think that is physiologically better for the animals and that's why they're that weight? This is all debatable. We've talked about it before.
Oh, very debatable. We can talk about that. That could be a whole other episode.
But what I'm saying is for baby ball pythons, if you need to take a break, think it should be encouraged. Sometimes, like if you're busy, they ate 15 times. They're 200 grams. If you skip a week, that's fine. Who cares?
They're gonna be just fine.
Right. It's probably good for them to take a little respite. So
Little reminder that they should be eager to eat their rats.
yeah, there are people who do it on purpose every 14 days or still every 7 days, but it's such a small animal that it basically never grows. And that's its own problem. The compensatory growth still exists here. So if you got a 2-year-old that was 150 grams, it could still technically meet adult size within 2 more years or whatever if you fed it more. But there's a window where that time, you can't do that anymore. And that, I think I talk about in the boa section, but in ball pythons, it's probably like 6 years. If you severely underfed a ball python for 6 years,
You think it would 6 years? You think you could do it for 6 years?
underfeed them for 6 years?
Yeah. Where they were like only like under 500 grams?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, there's an old video of Jeff Ronnie with a boa. He's like, this boa is 8 years old, and he picks it up, it's in his hand, and it's permanently stunted into like a kind of big 6-month-old size. And he's like, look at this. And you could feed that snake a bunch now and it will never catch up because it's like the plastic period of its development is stopped. So you could force a ball python to stay small. I don't know what happens to it.
Right. Like
Mortality wise.
Going to be able to be like reproductive.
Oh, yeah, it's not going to
or-
reproduce. There's an pretty sure it was Phoenix Reptiles. He was talking about how he had fed a chondro. They thought it was male, like a male. They fed it light, kept it small.
Yeah.
And it was 6 or 7 or something. And they're like, whoopsie, it's a female. And no matter what they did to it, they could get it fat, but it was out of the plastic period for growth. And it just would get fat. And it never was able to reproduce because it never hit critical physiological size or whatever you would need.
Right. It's like an anorexic woman.
Yeah, and boas, some of the extremely small stunted ones will still breed, like if it's 3 feet long, but not if it's the size of a hatchling. Because there's physically not enough room for a normal embryo to grow or eggs to grow. So even if you made it fat after the fact, you couldn't get action out of it. So I'm saying there's a window of time where you can make up for these deficits, but that window isn't infinite. And so you can force close a snake's mature size to be extremely stunted and small. That's not good. Don't do that.
Don't do that. That's not
these
desirable.
fuckers.
You know, when you buy a 18-month-old that's still 150 grams, that's not good.
Well, what I'm saying is that snake can be fixed.
Can be fixed, yes.
Because of compensatory growth. It's probably not great, but I don't know if that snake has incurred any sort of damage. I don't know. I know a 6-year-old one that's 150 grams has. Probably.
Yeah.
The plastic period is different, and I guessed 6 years for ball pythons and boas as the plastic period based on anecdotal evidence that I've seen. Obviously, snakes' growth is indeterminate. They continue growing forever, but whenever the slow period kicks in, they can't usually compensate back and get back a normal adult growth again. Very quickly, the 5-day-a-week feeding schedule. Do you remember this?
That's that thing where they were like, we should feed them more. Feed them tiny meals every single day. Like
exactly. There was a Will Banks sort of post on the Morph Market community, and Sean Bradley mentioned it in one of the bullshits. But Will Banks' post is disingenuous because that's not what he was doing. What he said he was doing wasn't what he was doing. He says he would feed the same weight of food item 5 days a week. So if he was going to feed 100 grams of rat or whatever, he would feed 20 grams each day, right?
Right.
That's not what he did. Because if you go listen to the old bullshit, that wasn't their plan. They fed a baby, like a fresh hatchling, a fuzzy rat, like a smaller than a pup, but still small, 5 days a week.
Day. Yeah.
So that is not
way more than they're
100 grams divided by 5. It's like 20 grams times 5 for an animal that weighs 100 grams.
Right.
So he was covering himself a little bit in that Morph Market post.
I don't even how. Okay, that's not true. There's a couple of snakes in my collection that would eat every day if you let them. But for the most part, my experience with ball pythons, you wouldn't be able to get all the hatchlings to do that. Like, it takes a certain personality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they've both confirmed that. Like, they could try it, and some snakes would just be like, no, bitch, I'm good. But the ones that would, they did it until they were like 500 grams or something. And then they would stop. But what he was able to do was buy a pinstripe in the summer and have it breed in the same fall because it's like 6 months old or whatever. And so he brought to the market the next summer the offspring of that male by doing this technique.
Interesting.
Like it was born in May or like an early summer pin.
Right.
So in a normal world, you would have been breeding him, the next year.
He caught a whole season extra.
Yes. And back when pinstripe was $20,000.
That was a big deal.
Yeah. This was a secret. Like, how did he get this pinstripe up fast enough to do this? And then he revealed it eventually.
Every effing day.
Yeah. And then everyone's like, you're a power feeding piece of shit. And
yep.
And I don't know. He claims that animal, when he sold it, was still doing fine. Because once it hits like 500 grams, they almost like put on their own little brakes. They're like, fuck you now. And they go to a normal every 7-day schedule or whatever. But you can still get those.
Or they don't eat for a year.
Or they don't eat for a year. But he said he sold them and they were fine after that.
Of course. Yes. Because he keeps track of every single one of his snakes.
I don't know what sort of long-term damage this does.
If you overfeed a male snake, even if it's one that loves to eat, it will eventually stop eating. for
Yes.
long periods of time. That's been my experience. So, like power feeding a male to get it, I mean, every 5 days, an appropriate size meal will get it bigger in size and get you there. But power feeding it like multiple times a week,
I
in
mean,
my
there's some ball
experience, that
python
has
people that
not paid
feed
off.
little babies every 3 days for a while, and then push it back to 5, and then push it back to
don't have
7.
a problem with that. I think if they'll eat and you're feeding the appropriate percentile and body, if they all eat every 3 days, like that's
Well, the reason why
grow
Wilbanks
so
did that
slowly when they're that
is because that
age.
stupid Burmese python paper. Because it takes so much energy to like up regulate the digestive tract. If you don't ever have to up it and down it, 30% of the calories from a food item is wasted, getting ready to digest.
Yes.
So if you're constantly feeding them, they don't have to ever get ready to digest. They're just
They're
busy
just constantly
digesting.
in food mode. But like how many years of life did you just
I don't know. But what I think is that he's still sort of on the spectrum of what we're doing right now. We are feeding less than 14 days. So our snakes are always in food mode also.
Interesting. Okay.
So
And
he's
that's
not
a perspective I
necessarily...
hadn't thought.
Who is the person who can claim they are not power feeding? Someone who feeds every 3 weeks. Because even 14 days, you would be immediately putting them into food mode again. There's no like secession of like a time
But
of
could you even get him to
starvation.
breed if you did every 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think you could.
A
It
ball
just would
python.
take 4 or 5 years.
I just mean if you're feeding every 3 weeks and they're to size and they're
I'm not advocating for this
physically
position.
No. I'm asking. This is we're posing the
Yeah,
hypothetical.
okay.
Okay, so who cares how old they are? Maybe they're 6 and they're finally to size and they're sexually mature and they're interested. Would feeding them every 3 weeks trigger an ovulation, or would they think I should not have eggs because I'm not consuming enough calories?
I think they would breed every 3 years, like they probably do in the wild.
That's fair. I mean, I have a snake. She's a 2017, a female clown that I picked up from somebody because she was a really crappy eater. And I raise ASF, so I was like, hey, a really cheap, already 3 years old clown. And at the time, she was like 800 grams. And I was like, I have ASFs. And, why not, So I got her, and that was like a year ago, and she will eat ASFs, but she's still only 1,400 grams, but she's currently at like almost 30 millimeters. So she's my smallest female that's not a 20
Get it out,
hatchling.
Jana.
Sorry.
You're struggling tonight,
So
boy.
many words. Anyway, she's my smallest adult female.
So you have a
2017.
2017 who has the years of maturity, but not a big body size. So what is your argument? Did you have a point?
I'm saying that she doesn't eat as much or as often as my other snakes, and yet she's still going this year. It'll be her first year, but I think she's going to go. She's already at 30. Herself, she eats like every 2 weeks, and an ASF isn't as big as like a medium rat or whatever, and she'll only take one. So I mean, she's like basically a mouser. She's still going to go, and she's like my tiniest bodied.
So your female is sort of probably self-enforcing a wild eating strategy where they probably eat every 2 or 3 weeks, breed as a smaller adult, and don't
she's
breed
very
every
small.
year.
She's also short, but she's very thin-bodied. Like she looks like a 2-year-old.
Right. So we've been picking ball pythons to breed that are like weird ball pythons that want to eat a bunch, that have big clutches, and go early. We've been like artificially selecting for ball pythons like that. What the 14-day and up argument people are arguing is that we should mimic the wild feeding strategy to increase longevity. And I'm on team, it's probably okay either way, because we've picked the ones that like to do this anyway.
Correct.
And they're fine. So I don't...
Basically like natural selection down to what we like to do in captivity.
Yes. And there are some species where the snake will eat itself to death, like a retic or a boa. We haven't had enough generations to pick the ones that tolerate it really well yet. And so they look like shit and they die. So I don't know what the right answer is. I just know what we're doing right now, and it seems okay to me. So
Yeah,
you can feed babies every 14 days, I guess is my point.
We're not even two adults.
Yeah, not really. You
Can
can feed babies every 14 days if you want. You can feed them every 7 days if you want. You can feed them every 5 days.
Apparently, you can
if
feed them
want.
every 3 days if you want.
Yeah, I don't feed
don't do
anything 3 days. 5 for like a teeny tiny little bit. Usually they stop wanting it every 5 days anyway at 400-ish grams, 400. They start to get like skippy because they don't really need it. So,
I don't do it. I don't do every 5 days to 400 grams.
well, that spot nose
do.
yellow belly just like shot up to 400 grams and I didn't notice. And I was like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, you're giant. So I pulled him back to 7. But he was skipping.
I mean, yours grow better than mine, so maybe I should go back to every 5 days. So that's like an extra mouse a month.
I mean, you don't have to, though, because you're going to pair them when your females are ready anyway. So the only reason you would want to do that is if you had a female who's going to be receptive right at the end of the season when he would have potential chance to sire it anyway. It's hard to decide if any of it's worth it. Like, I think about going back to like 3 feeding items a month for female holdbacks. Does that make any sense? Like, if they won't breed at 15 to 1800 grams and 18 to 24 months old anyway, then there's no reason for me to feed them fast.
Correct.
Just for them to go off feed.
Have you had any get above 10 millimeters?
Nope.
From me neither.
And I've been looking at the ones that have been like the most probable candidates and still on food. I think they still have like a chance. But
right. It's still early days in the season.
Right.
But I just haven't seen it. None of them have made any.
Right. And none of my 2019s either. Fuck those.
My 2019s are, it's about 50-50.
I mean, I don't have very many. I have like 3.
No.
But all of my 2019s are, even though they're huge, 2,400 grams, long, big, muscular. They just don't want to do it yet. So it's fine. There's no reason necessarily to feed them fast. We're getting subadult section now. I feed subadults every 7 days. And that will, in my collection, cause a fasting period sometime between 1,000 and 1,700 grams, which is also known as the wall.
Right.
If I
hate the wall.
Well, if I fed them less coming up to that, they'd probably just not do that because they would hit that weight as they'd hit 1,000 grams at 18 months old instead of hitting 1,000 grams at 12 months old.
Right.
So they'd probably be already older and they might just plow through it anyway. So they're developmentally further along and they aren't as full for their length. I'm just thinking about my own strategy because
talking about the 1,000-gram wall.
Most of my
how to avoid it. Hot take.
The answer is to feed them less. There's some evidence for switching to 2-week feeding earlier, maybe, or doing that all along. What the fuck do I know? Especially if you have like a big collection and the cost of feeders was like important in terms of your break-even point. Because it's not like a perfectly linear relationship. Like if you fed every 2 weeks, your snake would be 70% the same weight as a snake fed every week.
So
it's not 50%. Like
we've had big discussions about this as well. I don't know if it was on the podcast or not. I think it was.
Yeah.
Might have been the feeder episode. I mean, we've talked about it, how some people do every 2 weeks, some people do every week. And I've always been like a big believer of like feed. If they'll eat it, take it. Like it never made sense to me, the people who try to cut costs by feeding their snakes like once or twice a month, ball pythons. And then their snakes are like real skinny. So I don't know. I've always been like pro feed. Since we had that big long discussion about feeding, I do like you said, like 3 feeder items a month instead of 4.
For subadults? We're in the subadult section right now.
I know. Damn it. Let's get to the adults.
Okay. Well, the wall can last, literally 1 week off and then they're done. Or, months, 6 months. Some take fucking a year. I have a female who hasn't eaten since November.
I have one as well.
A 2020.
Yep.
Yeah. 2 sisters.
She
and
hit,
the one sister
she hit
lasted
like
a little longer.
1,200 at like 12 months or something. I mean, she was like a really good eater.
Yeah, mine too. They were like the best of them.
The best of them, and now she hasn't eaten in 6 months.
Right. It's because they got
5 months.
Well, I don't know why this happens, but those are the ones that got really fat and big. Mine were like fat, because they were eating like monsters. And they're like, oh, I'm kind of full. And I'm having like developmental puberty type feelings. So I'm going to take a break. And so they just take a break. It is normal, but
so frustrating.
Yeah, it's probably fine because they're like practicing, for the next year. But I wonder how much less they would do this if we had just fed them every 2 weeks, starting at like 600 or 700 grams all along. Like starting when they get really hangry, one bigger, like a slightly bigger, small, every 2 weeks instead of every week. Big
I'm
wean
gonna
or small,
experiment
small.
with that. My 2020s.
It's especially true if it's your own whole back females anyway, because you already
Right.
have their moms breeding. A male is a little different. Like, there's more incentive to like getting a male to 800 grams because he could do it right away.
Yeah.
Whenever he's 800 grams, he can go do something. Females are different because the time to maturity is important. Although I heard again on like Muscle Serpents Daily about him breeding 18-month-old ball pythons a
I
couple
don't know how
times.
these people are magically freaking breeding 18-month-olds. It's gotta be because they're maybe JKR's females breed at 18 months, and that's where everybody's getting their females. And so those lines breed faster because Miguel breeds his all at 18 months too.
I don't know if he breeds all of them.
I'd love to see some numbers.
Like what percentage of them? Yeah.
Yes, because
Yeah.
like I said, 0. And I have 10 that have all received locks.
I have like 37
Oh my gosh.
that have all received locks because they're all pretty big.
Jeez. Yeah. Well, one is at 10 millimeters.
Yeah, I have,
I mean, that's better than the rest that are
I don't
at
know,
less
maybe
than 10.
4 that are like 10 millimeter, like they could decide to do something with those millimeter, you know.
Right.
But that's like almost like a baseline size. If you're like squinting hard or you like miss, you know, sometimes you can barely see
Correct.
fucking shit all nothing. You're like, is this snake a male? And
Do
then,
I even know what I'm doing? Yep. Do I need to probe this snake? I'm a
And then
fucking
when a
idiot.
female
Why
is
do I
like-
own an ultrasound.
then when the female's an adult, you start to see like they just always have a couple of 7, 8, 9s floating around in there.
Right.
It's just somewhere. And then
Just somewhere.
the little bitty ones you can barely see anyway. So some percentage of my 2020s have the slightly bigger than normal 10s. They're not doing anything with them, but they do. So I think they've become sexually mature. So those ones could, but that is not a high percentage of what the hell's going on in there. So I don't know if they'll do anything with that this year. So what I'm saying is I don't know what I'm talking about. But right now, subadults are fed every 7 days, sometimes a skip. Like if I run out of feeders or something, I just like really don't care. You don't need shit. I'd rather feed it to like
Someone who's actually going to go this year.
yeah, if somebody's building follicles. So
Right.
that's
I'm the
my
same way.
advice. I just wonder if I should just like enforce 3 feeders a month as like a rule or something. I have no idea. I might work on it this year because I have 40 more holdbacks.
Oh my gosh. I think I have like 20, which is funny because I didn't have any.
Boom.
I didn't
I
have
did
any.
order another ARS. Totally changed topic. I wasn't going
I
to until
ordered one
after we
too.
moved, but their lead time's 8 weeks now. I was like, it was fucking
What? I should check. Okay, did they like update you
no.
on when?
You just
No.
get a fucking
like, hey, by the way,
invoice
there's
from
snipped
RL Freight and whatever. It's like, this is when it's happening. You're like, okay.
And
And
it's been a
then
while. I ordered right
yeah,
after the new
you
year.
should have already gotten it by now if it was actually 8 weeks. So we'll see.
That's rude.
The other thing that people talk about the wall, the last thing about subadults is that some people believe it's developmentally required to breed the next year. Like it's some sort of phase.
Oh, it's like an indication that they have sexually matured.
Yes. They need to take a break from eating to work on hormones or whatever, or they're linked to the hormones, or that's why they're not eating. Because males will just like plow to their adult size and then they'll just be like too full and they won't eat. But that happens at a random time. With females, it seems to happen more tightly around the winter time. It doesn't matter what size a lot of my females were. They could have been fucking 1,800 grams or 1,000 grams. They all sort of went off food together in like February. 2020 females.
Right.
No fault. All right, adults.
Yay, finally! Because I've been talking about adults this whole
I
freaking
know.
time.
Yeah, we'll go fast.
Damn it.
I still feed breeding females weekly, about a medium. I will sometimes feed an extra when they're building follicles and they're crazy. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
they take 2 months off before they lay, right? And then 45 days after they lay, or 45 days after they ovulate to lay, they're not eating. Some of mine are going off food at 20 millimeters.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are going off food at 25. But they are, a female ball python is like baked in, not going to eat 4 months of the year, maybe 5 months of the year.
Yes.
So she, to me, is getting a metabolic digestion rest already. And if you don't get them back on food after laying, they will stay off food for the 60 days they would have been incubating if you can't wash them off good enough or motivate them. So that's another 2 months. That's 7 months of the year where they're not eating. So feeding them faster while they can eat, to me, doesn't seem to cause going off food because they're too full, too full of fat. And they're like, oh, my reserves are full. They don't really do that. They're just like, fuck, I just died for 5 months. Now
I need to
hungry.
eat. Yeah.
Now I'm so hungry. Adult females that are breeding are sort of easy to take care of because you just gotta feed the piss out of them to get them ready to even have a chance.
At what point do you, if you do, start to like restrict food? Like I have a female that I've been breeding since I want to say like March, so I guess a year, and she's still at 10 millimeters, and she eats anything you give her, and she still is not gone. She's a 2019. Like I said, she's been getting locks for almost a year.
What a whore.
And she will eat a medium, 20 smalls. She does not care. She eats every week like clockwork. Sometimes I skip her because I'm like, girl, you getting fat. And so now she's on like smalls like every 2 weeks because she's huge.
Yeah, I would do that. I would agree with that. Because I'm
like, at this point, I'm like, because I was like, I think she's going to go. Like, she was doing the whole like food response thing. And then she like settled down, but her follicles never changed. But based on her behavior, I'm like, oh, but she's definitely going to go. And then like she just tricks me. And now she's this obese snake. And I'm like,
yeah, 2 weeks is good. Or like force her to take only a weaned. Even though she's going to be like, you're a bitch. You're a fucking, or give her chicks or something. Something lean.
Something real lean. Okay.
I was sold a fire and prongs at the same time. The fire and prongs were both, in my opinion, the only ball pythons I've ever seen. It was like, the thing is, that's not true, not the only, but like literally ball pythons that are too fat to be safely bred, which doesn't really, it's pretty rare. Literally too fat. So she did die, and I had her tested for 9 hours. She was negative. Chopped her open. She was just too fucking fat. So when she was building follicles, there was no more space left. She was over full. She had like ruptured a membrane or something in her oviduct. You want there to be fat in their body cavity because that's what they turn into eggs. But she had so much fat. It was like, where they get like that,
that shape.
Muffin top. She was too fat. So if I had any brain cells, and I was feeding her every 2 weeks, she was just still too fat. She was too fat to be paired. She had to be starved to be paired. That's how fucking fat this thing was.
She's not.
Prongs wasn't as fat, so she did fine.
Right.
And then now she's at like a normal sort of weight curve where she breeds every year, so she dumps 1,200 grams every year.
Right.
And then gets that 1,200 grams back and then drops again. That is a normal whatever. So yeah, every 2 weeks would be good. I don't know.
Yeah, no, she's not like to the obese body shape. She did, like I said, I've been feeding her like she was gonna go for almost a year, and now I'm just like kind of looking at her sideways, like, well, you've put on 1,000 grams.
Are you gonna sell her?
No, she's a G stripe. She's staying.
Okay.
That's only 2019. Like it's not.
Yeah. Okay.
Like it's not like she's never gone yet. So it's not like I've even given her a fair shake. Like it was probably like she hit 1,500 grams in March last year, and that's when I started pairing her because I was like really excited because she hit weight.
Yeah.
So I probably shouldn't have started pairing her until September, and she still could go this season. But like I said, I've been feeding her like crazy, and now she's 2,500 grams. So she's put on 1,000 grams in a year. Like that's a lot to me.
Yeah, I don't know anything about bubble.
Nothing at all.
Yes, if she's not building follicles and she looks a little chunky, I would keep her on 2 weeks or weans or whatever.
Okay. That was my instinct too, because I'm like, girl, I don't mean to body shame, but
this year with the ultrasound, the females that are going off food at 20 mils instead of 25 or 27 are going off food at 20 mils because they're already kind of fat. Like they got fat enough soon enough. And so even though they're not full with eggs, they're like, because they were fat asses for like 2 months, they're going off food early, even though they could still
I've noticed that
technically
as well.
fit it.
The ones that have the thicker body condition going off at like 18 to 20 millimeters.
Right. So that means those ones will be off food for fucking 6 months or something.
6 months. Yeah. The ones that are scrawnier though, they'll go up to like 30.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. 100%. That's why it's okay to pack them in when it's time to pack it in, because they'll stop to get ready anyway. It's these like females that aren't being paired or aren't growing follicles that I worry about. So that's why we have a section for non-breeding and or pet females. Once they're an adult and they're done growing, I would recommend someone feed them every 3 or 4 weeks. They are usually so fucking fat, and they're not going to dump 1,000 grams a year in eggs. Just keep them sort of lean so that they don't go off food for 6 months, because there's just like, there's nowhere to offload the caloric excess. Right. In my opinion, it would keep them from parthenoing. That's what I always tell people is
like every like 3 weeks. Yeah. I don't know why these 3 people who aren't a small breeding, item. Yeah, like some people that aren't breeding their ball pythons, they're pet only, are feeding them mediums every week.
They like to waste money.
There is no reason that a non-breeding female ball python that is full size should ever have a medium.
Right. She doesn't need anything.
I mean, really. I guess you're going to do a medium once a month.
Yeah, like, I have a random dude who has one snake who buys a medium literally every month or 6 weeks. And I'm like, yeah, if she never breeds, that's totally fine. I don't care.
That's cool. Yeah, they should not be being, because they're not going to dump 1,000 grams, but they don't know that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's those really heavy females that partheno randomly at year 10, and they're like, right. I guess I should breed now. I need to drop some calories. Here's some eggs. Same is true for males, but even more so. Non-breeding males, pet males, almost like the more infrequently you feed them, the better. Because that means they're less likely to go off feed in the winter, but they still might do that anyway. But if you're like slamming them every week, they literally have nothing to do. The probability that they go off feed in the winter is 100%. You've guaranteed it because you've fed them too much. I've made this mistake too. Like males, I wasn't going to pair. And I was feeding them every 2 weeks. And they go off food anyway. And you're like, well, I guess I should have fed you every 3 weeks because you were already too fat coming in. You're already to the season. You have nothing to do. Yeah. Right. You obviously don't want them losing condition, but a ball python almost doesn't lose weight when fasting if they're not doing anything. They almost just, if
they're not breeding.
Right. They almost just
like. But if they're breeding, holy calories.
Yeah, they do lose weight. If your goal as a pet keeper is to be able to feed them at some sort of known interval and not have to keep frozen thawed and throw it away every time, feed less. Feed less when they're babies, feed less when they're sub-adults, feed less when they're adults, so that they're actually like ready for their food when it comes.
Right. I think that's a really hard concept for human beings to wrap their mind around. Is like, I'm only going to feed this animal once a month or twice a month, because we've been so conditioned that like we eat every day, cats and dogs eat every day. Like, so an animal that does it, it feels like neglect. I know it was something I really struggled with when I first started keeping snakes. That I would like looking on them every day. Like, are you sure you're not going to die if I don't feed you? Yeah. They're really fine. They're totally fine. Or you like go on vacation for a week.
It's good for them. They're honestly, fine. Yeah. And there's a part in here somewhere about like stochastic feeding. Like you don't have to feed every 7 days. You could feed 5 days, then 10 days, then 15 days, then 5 days, then feed them a chick. Like obviously we have 1 trillion snakes, so there's a little bit of like a need to schedule what's going on. But the individual keeper should be free as a bird to give like a more wild stochastic feeding schedule.
I've kind of moved to that right now because my life is kind of hectic. And so, I mean, I feed all the adults. Like I have feeding days like specific for biosecurity and stuff. But I used to be like, Thursday's feeding day for the adults. And like, if it didn't happen, I would like cry myself to sleep or something. And now I'm like, it's been about a week-ish. You know, maybe it's been 10 days. I don't feel like it today. We'll do it tomorrow. I don't know. I feel like I'm getting better feeding responses.
And it's totally sort of a healthy way for you to manage your workload anyway. So this is a win-win. Right. Where like, you gotta do a show, then you can do it a little early. And if you got a show, you can do it a little late on some of the feedings. Right.
Correct.
In my world, I have like 12,000 snakes. So Husbandry Pro tells me like the minimum clump of time and then reminds me, and I'm like, I hate these snakes today and I like these ones, so I'll feed this rack of 30, but I'll skip these and maybe I'll do them tomorrow or whatever, or I'll feed some early sometimes just because I called rats or whatever. I'm all over the place.
Or the king snake's looking at you evil.
Yeah, and those corns, I'm always like, shit, they're all looking desperate. So I'll just whip out extra mice almost every day. I'm just like, somebody needs a mouse. I'm sure of it. Because it's probably been 3 or 4 days for somebody. Mouse everywhere. Sprinkling mouses. That meme. Just with mice. Yes. But at that time, I'm really busy. So I'm not just like prioritizing, I don't know, none of the ball pythons who want to eat. So I like this week, I just gave everybody frozen thawed, whoever wanted it. Maybe like 15 took. There's a billion snakes in that room. Y'all suck. I threw out a bunch of frozen thawed. Like 10. I like defrosted like a bag of 20. I threw out like 10.
It makes me so mad when that happens.
So stochastic is good. Feed less is good. You don't have to get up to 1,500 grams at 18 months old or whatever the dumb shit we've been doing. Because it doesn't seem to make that much of a difference anyway.
It has made zero difference.
They'll go whenever they want to go. So that's why I'm thinking about going slower for females, because that's the bulk of my holdbacks. Like, feed the males still at a fast rate, but feed the females slower because they're not going to do anything anyway. So I could manage my collection a little bit differently based on gender. I don't know. I haven't done it yet. Just thinking about it.
Yeah, it's funny because before we talked about it a lot, I used to feed males slower and females faster because I figured it was going to take them longer to grow. And then, like, when we were comparing spot-nosed yellow bellies, and I was like, I have this backwards. It's like, those girls got time. I need to get these males big.
Yeah,
but
the girls...
used to feed it the opposite. I would feed the girls real heavy or a little bit bigger of a prey item, and the males, I would give them a smaller prey item, and now I'm like, until they hit size, that's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the logical way, because you know they have to get bigger, so they deserve more to get them there faster. But since there's a time-based component to their development that you can't, supersede with more rats,
right?
It makes more sense to feed males. Give males your highest priority always, because you have the females to give to them. So you're waiting on the males more than anything else right now, in my opinion.
Right. Yes, I am.
And some people artificially slow the growth of males because they think small males are better breeders, so they will not feed a male anything bigger than a large mouse or a wean. I think I've come to the decision that is incorrect. My best breeders are the biggest males I have, and then the oldest ones. Like,
I agree.
2,000 gram monstrosity males. We're like, why is it so fucking big? Because someone else fed the piss out of it for a long time and it got really big. Those are the males that, even if they go off food, they're still so fucking fat. They could keep going for 4 months, no problem. And they'll lose maybe a little weight, but like, they're so fucking big.
He's been breeding at least 2 or 3 times a month for a year. And I don't know if he was
some stamina.
Breeding. Well, I don't know if he was actively breeding before I bought him, because I bought him like mid-season last year. Mm-hmm. And then I handed him over to my buddy by me, and he was breeding his females. And then I got him back, and immediately after I got his test results, started breeding my females. 1,500 grams, eats every week, locks with anything you put him in. Total stud. Total stud. Like I said, breeding every month for the last 12 months, and he's fine.
Right.
Give me the girls. Give me the rat. I will eat it. No weight loss. He's fine.
Yeah. So I would encourage people not to like artificially stunt your male ball pythons because you think that makes them better breeders.
Because they need to be like 800 grams or something stupid like that. I actually feel better when they're fat. I mean, not overweight, like 1,500 grams. I think that...
I mean, the negative here is like not working them and then they go off food because they are doing nothing and fat, and then they stay off food for 6 months and you can't sell them when it's time to sell them because they can't figure out how to motivate them to eat.
Yeah, my clown male was 1,000 grams when the season started. Now he's 800 grams and still effing won't eat, even though he hasn't bred in 3-4 months. Still can't get him to eat.
That's why I'm like reluctant to pair. No, we've talked about this.
Guys.
Young, small males.
Like the 600 grammers.
Yeah. I've done it before, and I think I'll keep doing it, like saving them until they're as late in the season as possible, if that's the season they're going to try something in, until they're 8,000-9,000 grams, because then they're stronger and better. Although I have a male who's older and pretty big, but he just can't handle pussy or something, and so every year he so far he just will not eat after 2 or 3 months just because he doesn't want to. Doesn't matter what he does. It's just like breeding confuses him too much. He's like, oh, I fucking hate vaginas. And then he just doesn't want to eat. So that would be a trait I would select against in future males. I prefer the males like the big. Your Desert Ghost Pin, which is like my Inchy DG, same way. Monster, huge, does whatever the fuck he wants. Yep.
Give me all the girls.
So those are like daughters and sons I would want to take a lot as holdbacks. Not other wimpier boys. That's feeding ball pythons, everybody.
It really did take 100 years. You were correct.
Yeah.
We'll have to continue this next week into boas and...
Well, we have a special guest next week, so it'll be the week after.
That's what I meant.
Okay.
Special guest. That's very exciting.
Boas and colubrids are good because they're like weirdly different than ball pythons. Some things are the same, but there's like weird nuanced stuff that you're like, whoa, I didn't even know about that. So even though you think everything's the same, it's not. It's a little bit different. Justin Kabilka made a Kiki DG. How do you feel about that?
It is just as amazing as I knew it would be. And I'm like ecstatic that I'm in that project. Like it was literally like, I mean, Christmas isn't even enough of a word, but it was literally like angels sang from heaven while I watched the video, and I was like, yes! I don't know, it made me really, really, really happy.
What was it? A red stripe DG clown?
No,
DG
spot
Kiki?
Nose.
Or just spot nose? Or both?
Spot nose. He thinks there might be red stripe, but he doesn't know because that combo, I don't know. It was definitely spot nose, desert ghost, clown, genetic stripe.
Yeah, I thought it was possible, nice, but I wasn't like, as usual.
But that's not your thing.
Well, I mean, I like Kiki. I think that's the thing, is when you put DG and Kiki, you make another fucking thing that looks like a DG thing. Like, it doesn't look transformative of Kiki. Does that make any sense? Like, I want a Kiki that looks like a GHI Mojave clown, but in Kiki. Like that pattern,
there's
but
still
like
more
gray.
too.
Oh,
but
yeah, I know.
You could see when he put them next to each other, you saw how clean it was, though.
Yeah.
One was like a dirty stepbrother, and one was like...
No, it was beautiful. It's still good. I just like...
It needed more stuff to it. It needed to be busier,
yellow belly
crazier,
in it or something.
Yellow belly. Yeah, but it's still like you could just... It was so crisp, and it was so pretty, and it was so like... The base was good, man.
Yeah, it was good. I'm trying to be devil's advocate here.
That's fine. I will just swoon in my own
All right,
sleep.
what about the Freeway clown pie? Was that your favorite?
I was so disappointed.
What a bitch. Yeah, I
so underwhelmed. And he was like so excited. I felt bad for him. So the yellow belly asphalt clown pied, which was likely an asphalt clown pied, gorgeous, stunning. Holy crap, it was so pretty. And then he holds it up next to the Freeway, and I was like, oh. I don't know, that was one of my gold snakes, and now I'm just like, no thanks.
It's still probably an expensive snake, if that motivates
For sure. You. And I mean, it acts like super, but then you don't know if it's I don't know. I would like to see, whether you're gravel or asphalt, I would like to see the super gravel clown pied instead of the Freeway and see what that does.
Okay.
But I was very underwhelmed and very disappointed.
I mean, I think the highway pieds and freeway pieds also are pretty boring too. Like, I prefer gravel or asphalt pieds to the combo, to me. They're always high white. There's just like a dumb little stupid stripe on top. And it's not even as colorful as the single gene version because it's already washing itself out. They probably look like absolute dog shit garbage as adults.
I've never seen one as an adult, but you're probably right.
Neither. Yeah, so I don't know what should happen, but it should probably be like, because the highways and freeways lose so much to fading, they need these need desert ghosts to crisp them back up again because they fall apart. They will probably look like
I'm worried
white,
that desert ghosts will like wash them out more.
Yeah, but at least it'll like maintain the stripes. They'll probably look like ivories with black stripes.
It is a hard pill to swallow how crappy they look after about 500 grams.
Yeah, they look amazing.
Like hot garbage.
For a long time, for a bit. It's a very cool, like almost see-through.
It's so gorgeous.
Plastic look. I don't even know how to describe it. Like gems or something. I don't know. But it's not been the project for me because the adults look so
crappy. Hot garbage. It'll be interesting to see how the Phantom Highway that I have ages.
Best of luck.
He is like neon. He's so beautiful.
Okay.
So beautiful. Neon colors, neon purples from the Phantom. I don't know. We'll see.
The best adult that exists is the pastel pastel highway that lives in England. Do you know that one? It's like a famous snake. It's like one snake, like one particular lineage of highway. The blacks stay really tight and crisp. And they don't ever fade out. And the base will fade. It becomes like almost perfectly white, but the blacks all stay. That is the only adult example I've ever been like, that's worth buying. I have to remember the guy's name. I'll put it in the show notes if I remember.
Okay.
I will look for that. His snake has a name, and it's like a famous Instagram snake.
It's like Skittles, but a highway.
Yeah, and better looking than Skittles. Skittles is gross. Apocalypse beast. You know, there's the 4 horsemen and Skittles. Ugh. Gross. Did you watch the MJ interview with...
I have not. I even saw it on your notes and still didn't get to it. I was too busy reading your little novella.
Oh, fuck. Get it, girl. It was a lot of chit-chats. They were having fun at Tinley. But the Reader's Digest version here is... They talked about the industry.
Include spoilers.
Spoilers for what?
For this interview.
Yeah, we're talking about it. It wasn't that good. I don't know which time.
Oh, okay. Well, fine. Go ahead with your spoilers.
They repeated that
skank.
Hell yeah. They repeated that the industry, in their opinion, was slowing down, and they had issues. Ryan McVeigh said this with uneven attendance at shows. Like some shows would be popping, some shows would be dead, completely dead. They didn't understand why. It's probably because people are going out and spending their money on other things now. And that they were having issues with maybe the lower end sales weren't moving as much, which we've already talked about. Prophecy coming true.
Yes.
Jessica Hare. So that was just more...
If you'd like to hear more about her predictions of the market, there's a whole episode on it.
I don't remember the number. Yeah. Maybe 12 or something.
Go look it up yourself.
There was there was a pretty good burn on Nerd. I'll just leave it at that. And you can watch Justin grow so uncomfortable because he bought like the Black Dragon from Nerd and the Bolins from Nerd. Mm-hmm. And you can watch his little beautiful, pure Christian mind turning about what he should say. Because he is maybe still friends with Nerd, but then like he's in the company of people who are just like ripping Nerd a new asshole. And then he managed to like not do anything particularly bad or weird. It's a good job, Justin. But I thought it was like
he's like the savant of that, of just like neutral Switzerland. Love and kindness.
Oh, except for fucking Straight Fire. Apparently he fucked Straight Fire over, so Straight Fire doesn't like him. What? You didn't know about that?
You gotta dish. I don't know what you're talking about.
You gotta go listen to the Straight Fire interview with MJ from like 4 or 6 months ago or something like that.
Okay.
He says basically that Justin priced something lower than he wanted it priced, and they used to be friends, and they disagreed, and now he doesn't like Justin anymore because Justin dropped his project in a way he didn't like.
Huh.
The one bad thing I said about Justin.
Baby. I know it. It's like a big deal in the community. It's how you price things.
Yeah, especially
when big deal projects.
Oh my God! Speaking of trash talk in the ball python industry, I watched Reptile Ward's interview with Bob Vu from like a month ago last night, just randomly. I don't know why I hadn't listened to it yet. But he said on there that there used to be an anti-Asian Facebook group, like a private group that would like make fun of up-and-coming breeders. And all of the stuff that was making fun of him was because he was Asian.
What?
And I believe it because it's a bunch of fucking shitty, crusty white people. But he named the guy who was like the main piece of shit. And I'm going to say his name here.
Oh, I called him out.
Because, yeah, Bob, the guy who doesn't like calling out anybody, called out this piece of shit. His name is Tom Pekanik.
Correct.
And he is a piece of shit because he's been on my like fuck you list from the beginning. Because he's like the worst person to talk to or be near in a Facebook group. He's like a complete dick. He also breeds super jungle boas and sells them to like unsuspecting people. And these fucking boas are gonna die. And he thinks he's hot shit. He's just like an old crusty piece of shit. So when I heard that this fucker was making fun of Bob Boo for being Asian, 7 years ago in a private Facebook group like a fucking douchebag, I was like, oh my god, it's all coming together. The douchebag stars are aligning. Not only is he a piece of shit, he rips off new people and he like thinks he's special. He's been a piece of shit for this whole time. Holy fuck. Fuck that guy. Hate him. That's all I was letting that out. I just couldn't believe like it was like corroborated that he's been a piece of shit forever. He's still around. He's the dumbass that posts like laughing gifs on like BOI posts where someone's like, I had a problem, and if he doesn't think their problem is worthy of being posted, he'll just like laugh react to their posts.
That's so mean. That's so
and for
mean.
no
it's
reason.
Like literally like online trolling, online bullying when someone's like,
I can't wait until he like
I need help.
Dies of a heart attack or something. Can't wait. The world will improve greatly.
The claws are out.
Fuck that guy. I just can't believe he sells super jungles to people and doesn't tell them they're gonna die in like a year.
Why is he breeding jungles together?
Because he's a piece of shit. I don't have a good answer. Like, he has some nice snakes and he breeds them together. He makes super jungles. He offloads them on his like, I think he's from Arizona or something. It's like Arizona Facebook group, just noobs. They'll go to the BOA Facebook groups and be like, look at my new snake. And I'm like, did you buy that fucker from Tom again? It's always Tom. Almost nobody else is making them. A bunch of Walking Dead snakes. So dumb. Fuck that guy. Yeah, I said it. There was a nice crypto video from Shovenose Hogs. And since World War III starting, the island that my Japanese rat snakes come from is like back under contention to be absorbed by Japan again. So the Japanese rat snakes will be Japanese once more. Wouldn't that be fun? That was my news for the week. Wow. Also, there was a Lucy Asian vine snake that was found.
What?
So like the disappointed snake with like the keyhole eyes. So they found a white one with black eyes, like a black-eyed Lucy. And I'm like, please, Jesus, live. They're so cool. I've had some in the past. I hope the Lucy lives. That would be a cool.
That is really cool.
I love when they find string and
yours like that. Yeah.
All right. Do you have any collection updates?
I mean, it's all just, I have 8 girls who have ovulated and done their pre-lay shed, so they should be laying in the next month.
Mm-hmm. That'll be fun.
I checked on, it's about 30 days on my 2 clutches in the incubator, and pretty sure there's going to be no freckles babies, but there's still, I mean, everybody's still in there, but
they just look funky?
They're green.
Oh.
All but 2 are like green, and I've never seen a green. I mean, not like, I have a little bit of green mold on me, like the actual egg is green.
Oh no.
Like, pretty sure you're a goner. There's 2 that are still white, but I don't have high hopes for that clutch. And then, like I said, I think I was wrong. I don't think that my king snake's gonna lay. We'll see tomorrow when I offer her some quail. If she eats, then she's obviously not going to lay. But I did a first lock with my new clown male.
Yeah, I saw that today.
Yeah. So I posted that today. He did great. Locked right up.
How big is he now?
Eating. I could throw him on the scale. 600 grams. He eats great. Like, really great.
Is he a 20?
Yes. And he locked right up and passed his tests. And I only did a 6-week quarantine, which isn't my favorite, but it is what it is. What about you?
The corn snakes, I already talked about this, are like giving me a conniption because they're so spread out. I just did not expect them to be this spread out. I had that plan to like get everybody ready by like May 15th or something, and like that plan is fucked right in the asshole. It is gone.
They're like,
because right now I'll have babies popping out in April, May, and now that they're laying now, June, my ass is moving. July. So there's no like unified posting schedule.
No, not at all.
No. So I'm strongly considering doing the Monroe show and taking the first 2 clutches to that, because they'll have been alive for 6-7 weeks or something.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're eating every 4 or 5 days or whatever, they would be more than ready. And then getting rid of some of my leftover riffraff at the show from 2021. I say riffraff, but it's like the best stuff I have. Nobody wants to spend more than $500.
It's all like premium shit.
Right, because nobody wants to buy anything good. Whatever. And then like whatever, if I find some animals that I need to move, so I don't have to move them and they're ready to be moved. But the corns are really fucking me over. Bad corn snakes. Bad. So I'm going to spank them when we get off here. And hopefully they shape up. I'm hoping that like the females that have already been here, once they get used to when I want to put them down for brumation, they will tighten up their schedule.
Like next year will be better.
Yes, that's the dream. That's the dream. Could be wrong though.
How many minutes has it been cutting us off?
Sometimes as little as like 2. And I'm interested to see what'll happen tonight because
I've been watching like a certain length, or is it? No,
it's so fucking random.
And random. Okay.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like recovering 99.7% or 98% or just like. And if I ran the recording longer after we were done, you would think that would solve it, but I don't know if that will.
It hasn't solved it. No, we've done that twice and it hasn't solved it.
So it has to do with the computer being like, I'm confused. So sorry about that to everybody at home about random cutoff ends. It's usually something like what we're doing right now, which is so inane that it doesn't really matter anyway. It doesn't matter to anybody but me. I know, it sucks. I did do, because the weather was super nice today, I shot...
It was gorgeous. My kids put on their swimsuits. What? It was 60 degrees.
I shot 2 YouTube videos and the corresponding B-roll and then re-photographed all of the for sale boas and ball pythons.
Wow.
Outside. So we had like...
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. It fucking sucked.
I was going to say, like, how do you just like put them on a different spot of grass or deck?
The ball pythons were on a table on the deck. And the boas, I was like holding in front of the camera, like in the grass. Okay. And then when I sat them down for pictures, it was like a different piece of the grass, which sounds stupid. But
no, it's something I think about when I go outside. I'm like, where have I not set a snake?
Yeah, the boas
stresses me out just a bit.
Yeah, it should. But the boas are like, so we were photographed in different spots, different gloves. I did the ball pythons first. It was kind of sunny out. The boas all sort of live in a group together right now anyway in the master bedroom, and the ball pythons for sale all live in the guest bedroom, and those are their little units, so they're sort of cross-contaminating between each other anyway.
Right.
They're like cohorts, so I'm not that worried about them contaminating between those ones. It's more like you just did a bunch of balls, don't go touch all the boas. So it was like a delay of time. It was like a pain in the dick, but I got... because it was like sunny, but also like overcast, cloudy, and warm. So I got like perfect lighting for a bunch of pictures. So I finally did like updated pictures of everybody, updated weights outside. And now I have managed to edit the ball python one in like 5 minutes. So the ball python video is up already. Thank God for that. If you want to see visually the ball pythons that I have for sale, you can see them on YouTube right now. And I did a banana video last week. I don't think anybody watched that one though.
I haven't watched it yet.
It was like, inside, so like the lighting was shit. Yeah, it is another banana one.
But it's on my to-do list.
The hard part about that one is like, anytime you take pictures indoors, you're fighting your own shitty lighting.
Yes.
Unless you are magical and you installed lighting better. So it looks like dog shit. So when the weather was nice today, I'm like, we gotta use it or lose it, because it's just so much better looking having better lighting. So I used it for sales purposes, which makes me a capitalist whore.
Smart. No, use it or lose it, sister.
Well, there's a lot of nice days coming up too. So I'll probably do like, here's all my whatever boas that are 2 years old, or, like corn snakes that have Miami in them, or videos like that. I'm not really trying to do that much educational stuff because I don't have the energy for that. This is educational right now.
Doesn't have the energy, people. Literally running circles around me.
But it's like a shame though that like nobody can search my Instagram to figure out what the fuck my collection is. It just looks like a sea of corn snakes.
Such a shame, because you have such awesome stuff. But literally Instagram is like the wrong... Right. Why don't they fix that? Like, it's so frustrating.
I don't know. So I was like, let's just start like documenting the collection in YouTube videos. Somebody today was already like, what the hell is extreme gene? And I'm like, go look at the video. I already linked it. I'm like, look at the video with the extreme gene clown GHI in it. That does not look like a GHI clown. That's the difference.
It's so nice. My girl is so pretty. The one you sold me. Oh my God. I love looking at her. She's so beautiful.
I still think she's het or something else.
We'll see. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I can't wait to find out. That's the first pairing I'm going to do. Hopefully I'll have a
double
something else to breed to her when she's big. Yeah. Oh, she's so pretty. Did you see that I tagged you and somebody else had GHI extreme gene?
Yes. I do remember that. We kind of talked about that last week because I thought that snake, didn't look anything like my snakes. And that's why I was like even more sure it wasn't fire.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, we probably did talk about it. I'm sorry.
No, it doesn't matter.
What day is it? It's such a pretty gene. I feel like it didn't get any attention at all.
No. Well,
it'll be interesting to see how
explaining in the driveway to the guy today. He's like, I don't understand what it does. I don't understand what you're looking for in it. And I'm like, it's subtle, so it doesn't really count in terms of like pricing for the animal.
Right.
It doesn't count at all. But if you wanted to work it, you could carve a niche out of it if you wanted to.
It'd be so interesting to see how it plays into Kiki.
Yeah, I have no idea. It would be something.
Nobody does.
Nobody does. It's new. And then the other thing is like, there's a non-zero chance this is het tri-stripe and not extreme gene. Still, that's still up in the air.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Darn it. It's much more expensive. And interesting if that's true. Oh God.
They're so pretty.
Or it's both. Like, I don't know. I still look at extreme genes that other people have posted on Morph Market, and I'm like, mine don't really look like that. So what does that mean?
But I like yours.
Yeah, whatever mine is something.
It's so phenomenal.
But like, I don't know what it is.
The way that it, like, flames and... Especially with GHI, it's like... Anyway.
Isn't it weird?
That was not helpful or descriptive or anything, but that's how I feel about it.
It's all right. It's the end of the podcast. Yeah, I don't know what it is either. We'll know 5 years from now when my females are mature, which is how long it seems to take me to get a snake.
3 years from now?
I'll ask that 2018 Mystic when she wants to breed. 2017? I don't know. She's old as fuck. I checked her follicles. 10. Flat 10. Since the dawn of time. She was born with 10 follicles.
Yeah. No, I was pretty pleased. I just did ultrasounding again, and I have 20 snakes that are 20 and above.
That's a lot.
That's counting.
I have 3 that are like that size. 3.
Really? I'm really happy with how my season's going. Like, I did so shitty last year that, like, 20 that are 20 and above, and 8 of those are, like, I've already had their prelay shed. So I feel like I'm going to hit the numbers I want to hit. But there are some that were, like, I was really, really, really excited about the pairings that are doing nothing. Like, some of my really important pairings, they're just like, eh.
Do you have other, like, backup pairings that are similar, that give you
mean like
something
other
similar?
Clown Pied or Stripe?
Yeah.
That's what I'm like. So my Clown G Stripes, none of my Clown G Stripe pairings are doing what I want them to do. Well, that's not true. The Clown, she's at like 25, and she's so, yeah, I mean, yeah, I have multiple for the projects, and it's still early in the season, but there's a couple that I'm like really excited about, and they still haven't done anything yet.
I have a feeling that all of the ones that are going to lay in July or August, like the normal time most clutches are laid,
right,
if they're going to do that, they would already have some follicle growth now, even if it's like 12, because we're running out of time. It's physically still possible, right? But when I look at my females that are 10 now, they are not laying this summer, in my opinion. They could, but I doubt it.
So anybody that's like 12 and above, you think will lay or has the potential to go, but anybody that's under 12
this summer. I mean, like, in terms of like getting them in the normal time frame they were supposed to be going. So I'm starting to like think about females that are still 10 and not doing anything as like, you're not getting paired again for 3-4 months or something instead of every 8 weeks like they were to see if they
those are
would
the
want to
females
go.
that I'm coming back around to that haven't had a lock in 3 months that I'm like, oh, you haven't done anything. Maybe I should give you another lock.
I mean, maybe, but I'm like, we've gone through the temperature cycling. My fucking room was 85 degrees today because it was hot outside and I didn't like open the door. It's going to start being hot again. Whatever triggers, if they were going to be a seasonal type breeder, are going away. And it looks like, you know, all of my stuff that would normally lay in the fall already has follicles of some size. So the stuff that lays in October, November has follicles bigger than 10 now.
Right. So I have a female that laid in September and she already has 20 millimeter follicles. Like, what?
Right.
Like,
so
I didn't even have her on the list to like pair her yet.
So either she is like a slow grower, like she puts on 3 millimeters every month, or she's going to go early.
So she went from 10 to 20.
Okay. Then.
And I'm like,
she's gonna go early,
oh, why'd she get you a lock? Like, she hasn't had any locks yet this season because she's in September. And so I was like, I'm not going to throw locks at a snake that's not like I have her listed, I think, for next month for a lock. And I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, I don't.
I guess you're going to go.
To me,
it'll be interesting because I didn't have a ultrasound last season. So I don't know when.
And she might be going off of like stored sperm. She thinks she's going off storm sperm. Let me just say that. Like, she's building based on the presence of last year's stuff.
Oh, that's fair.
So you didn't necessarily need the lock. I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't expect somebody to start going this year, even if they're not doing anything yet, necessarily. Maybe they will, but it doesn't seem like that. Because all of my fall layers...
I'm not ready to accept that into my heart. That hurts my heart.
Yeah. I mean, all of my, like, fall layers already have 14, 12, 17. And I think they'll still lay in the fall. It's just they're going to, you know, sit at 17, 20. Yeah. And then they'll just blow up one day.
I'll have to look at my notes and see who all fell into that category.
And I think, obviously, we can be surprised. And obviously, like, a young female could just be like, fuck, I love dick. And then just like change your mind right at that moment. But my room is so seasonal. I almost don't think that's going to happen. To me, my clutches are like tightening up over time. The ones that were early are pushing further into the summer. And the ones that were late are pushing further into the summer, like squeezing together. Like the pressure.
See, and I had a really spread out season last year.
And yours is still kind of spread out.
It's still, yeah.
Yeah, so I wonder if you were in the shack and you were doing some sort of cooling because you're in a shack and you just can't help it. Like ambient is a little cooler.
It's going to push it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Narrower. We'll see. I mean, it's whatever. But
I mean, being spread, I would
really
prefer to be spread out. That'd be great. Instead, I get July. Whoopee!
July, 12 clutches. Good luck.
When I'm moving. Wow.
Right. Yeah. No, I prefer it. You know, 2 or 3 at a time is pretty decent. I think I had 4 one time last season, like within a couple of days of each other. It was a lot. Like
it's not as, and it's also not that good in terms of marketability because you can't bring a different amount to different places whenever. You just end up sitting on 700 because you were bringing them to the market the same time everybody else is.
700 fireflies.
That's all right.
I don't think I have any fireflies anymore. I think I sold them all. Can you believe that?
Good job.
It's a blessed miracle. So I think we did it.
We did it. Next week, if it works out, special guest. If it doesn't, more feeding. I don't know.
More feeding. It should work out. It should be good.
It's going to be great. I'll make it great. By force of will.
Force of will. All right.
Well, all right, that's it.
I'm going to go pass out.
All right. Good night. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Bye.